Settle in, traveler of the north. Tonight, we follow Arya Stark, a shadow with a heartbeat, from hearthfire to faceless wind. Breathe slow. If this calms you, subscribe for more quiet epics. Now, Winterfell, and the girl with a wolf nearby. Winterfell breathes dusk into its stones, and the stones return a hush that wraps the yard. I sit where needles click and thread bites, but my hands ache to run. I steal a glance, then a moment, then turn the moment into flight. Boots kiss snow, and the snow answers with small, delighted sighs. The air is a bright apple under my teeth, cold and alive. I run the low wall and the long walk. A blur the ravens watch like tutors. Sansa shapes songs like spun sugar, beautiful and careful, and I love her from another road. Robb gathers duty like a cloak against the wind, shoulders built for winter. A wolf gaze meets mine and keeps the firelight, amber caught inside amber. Nymeria knows before I say it that I am not a lady in silk. I am a runner, a climber, a listener in the hollows of halls. Jon finds me as kindness finds cold hands warm without asking for anything back. He smiles like he remembers being small and full of fight and hope. We trade jokes that hide like small blades inside sleeves, private and sharp. The great hall glows, the fire a red king whose court is bread, meat, laughter. Steam lifts and vanishes into beams like wishes. The ceiling collects and keeps. When he laughs, it is an oak creaking after storm, generous and patient. When he tells old tales, the whole room leans in as if winter listens too. He names kings of winter and bog ghosts and promises carved in frost-bitten breath. He says the heart tree breathes, and that breath is older than iron and song. I picture roots curling through black earth like sleeping serpents under snow and time. I picture a face carved to watch us without blinking, stern and strangely kind. Night oils every hinge and nail, and the wind smooths the fields with care. I slip from the bench like a fish from a net, small and certain. The hall swallows my absence and keeps the warmth, generous as a mother. In lantern corridors, each breath becomes a tame ghost that drifts behind me. The walls know 1,000 secrets, and most of them prefer sleep to gossip. I learn their silence until my feet can draw the castle with eyes closed. Sansa's melody rides the stones like a swan on a black canal. We are a tapestry of wolves and words, brothers and sisters, oaths and winters. Robb's duty shines, Bran's climbing sings, Rickon dreams with both small fists. Mother's eyes count every risk and whisper without sound, guarding like winter glass. I fit nowhere and everywhere, a wind under a door, a warm draft. At the armory, hammers laugh, and sparks fly like a flock of tiny comets. I steal their rhythm and tap steps on flagged stone that only I can hear. There are handholds in winter that summer forgets, small, brave teeth in stone. Nymeria pads beside my heartbeat even when kennels claim her, and I am less alone. Sometimes I think she hears promises I am not yet able to speak aloud. Father's voice returns like tide. Keep your word, your courage, your feet under you. I keep running and keep listening and keep climbing the sentence that starts with me. Snow tries to be serious, but I kick it into glitter that laughs in light. I race a pretend foe and win by a breath and crown myself Queen of White. Jon catches me crossing and nods at the butts, a quiet dare between us. His kindness is a key that opens doors I did not know were locked tight. I string a bow with stubborn fingers, arms trembling, arrow somewhere between failure and promise. He says good, and I believe him because belief can be the first true step. True takes time and falling and rising, and I have an appetite for both. Later the hall glows again with different smells, but the same welcome and warmth. Servants glide like winter swans, and hounds curl near the fire, dreaming of red leaves. Bran's laughter climbs rafters and perches there, bright, wild, never still for long. I tuck my feet and listen as father opens the north like a careful map. He points with stories, measures with names, threads rivers and hills and bogs together. The land rolls under my tongue like a single big round word I nearly taste. He tells where the heart tree stands and asks us to listen with more than ears. I lean into the idea of roots gripping stone and patience as sharp as steel. If a tree can keep its promise 1,000 winters, a girl can keep one too. Torchlight braids shadows into sleeping ropes, and the rafters grow quiet like tamed wolves. I slip back into corridors, and the castle holds me gently in cold hands. My breath rises in lantern light like a pale banner that says I am moving. I follow that banner because it is mine, because it floats and it waits. My palm finds a rough patch like a secret handshake, private and cheering. My feet remember the notch in the stair, the tiny danger I always dodge. When I pause, I can feel Winterfell breathing with me, long, slow, steady as snow. I match it without thinking, and the quiet fills me like a deep, warm cup. The night is big enough for wolf dreams and girl plans, both fierce and kind. I promise something to stone and air, and sleeping gods by the way I walk. Before sleep, I whisper to the wolf I love and the brother who saw me. Snow hushes the yard until it becomes one soft bed. The moon smooth, lanterns paint halos, and my breath makes friendly ghosts that wait for me at corners. I step into my room and out again in my mind, already running tomorrow's race. I am stubborn and young and full of answers whose questions have not arrived yet. Even without steel, something bright forms behind my ribs, glowing like a banked coal. Breath clouds in lantern corridors, small moons blooming and fading with every step. They follow me like patient ghosts. Before steel has a name, a promise is forged. Farewells gather in the yard the way sparrows gather on thawed stone, quick and nervous. Wind threads through banners and noses, and everyone pretends not to shiver. John walks toward me with a secret shape like comfort, his smile hiding something thin and bright. He holds out the gift as if it might fly away if he loosens his fingers. Needle lies there, light as a whisper, narrow as certainty, eager as a promise I already made. I take her, and the world clicks into place, a door settling in its hinge at last. Steel kisses palm, palm answers. A quiet pact seals without any priest to witness it. He says the words that fit like a glove over courage, a joke that is also instruction. Stick 'em with the pointy end, and I grin because the world is suddenly simple and sharp. We hug in the language of people who say little and mean oceans. Then we belong to the wind again. I hide her where only breath would think to look, and breath would not betray me. The yard blurs, the gate opens, and the road pulls like a river makes a boat move. North falls behind like a friendly bear that has gone to sleep for a season. The wheel ruts hold puddles that reflect a young sky, clean and untested, blue as a new bruise. River mirrors flash between trees and swallow clouds, and I swallow sadness and let it become salt in me. Road dust shakes itself into our clothes, small and steady, a traveling snow too warm to melt. Nymeria pads beside sound and smell, shadowing my heartbeat, a soft tread drawn at my heel. We pass fields where crows count seeds louder than farmers count blessings. We pass hills that keep their secrets under sheep and heather and slow time. Needle taps her little song through cloth and leather, a heartbeat I can feel even when I pretend to forget. When night kneels down, we make small fires and larger stories and argue softly about which is which. Stars pour out like grain from a careful hand, and I tell them to watch me. In the morning, the road remembers to be long, and we remember to be stubborn. The South rises like a rumor that becomes a city, heat and spice and noise learning to stand upright. King's Landing is a maze of red stone, baked and spiteful, with alleys like narrow mouths that tell lies. I smell cinnamon braided with tar, perfume dueling with fish and dung, and I want to try everything and nothing. Palace courtyards are stages where people wear kindness as costume and knives as jewelry. I run the edges and listen through latticework, collecting words the way boys collect scar stories. The trident becomes a lesson where Prince meets Butcher's boy and pretends he does not see the truth. Joffrey's voice is honey over thorns. Sansa believes because believing is softer than bleeding. Nymeria decides faster than I can speak, and the water takes blood and pride both. I throw stones at the river as if I could break the reflection and make another world spill out. I shout until my throat tastes of iron. Then I run until my shame falls off and cannot keep up. We hide, we coax, we push, and the direwolf vanishes into trees thick with rumor and mercy. Later I watch from shadows as consequences march. Boots aimed at the wrong hearts because the right ones run too well. Needle rests against my side, unblooded and bright. An argument I have not yet spoken aloud. The city teaches quickly, and its lessons charge interest when you dare to forget. I learn to move like smoke, to watch like a cat, to breathe like someone with nowhere to be caught. I learn that courtiers wear masks that smile for them even when their faces are tired. I learn that truth is a bird that flies only when windows are open and eyes are closed. In the yard, I sneak practice, stabbing straw with a determination that pretends it is play. The servants pretend not to see and teach me more by not stopping me than any tutor could. Sunlight on steel makes ripples like clear water, and my eyes swim in it until I can hear the blade. I whisper names to Needle, the way some people whisper prayers to gods that do not answer quickly. She hums in my hand and asks for patience I do not have, but will someday own. I fail and fail and breathe and fail and breathe, and each breath lays one brick of skill. The city speaks spice and rumor. I answer with footsteps and small vows that no one hears. When someone pushes, I push back with a grin and a blade I never draw. When someone sneers, I carry the sneer like slingstone practice and return it later, improved. I follow cats across rooftops and into kitchens and under wagons to learn the hidden river of the place. Sometimes I think the Red Keep is a living beast whose ribs I run along, whose breath I time. I choose corners that belong to dust, and dust keeps my secrets for the price of a sneeze. I count guards the way bakers count loaves, quick and exact, always ready to share the number if asked. Names become weights on a string I tuck into my sleeve, heavy and necessary. By the river again, the prince tries to be more than he is, and again everything costs more than it should. People gather like starlings to watch dignity and cruelty dance without ever touching hands. Nymeria's defense is a storm in a narrow place, and afterward the air tastes like a struck coin. I understand for the first time that a single moment can throw a whole season off its horse. Night folds the city into smaller shapes, and we fold ourselves into silence that hurts to swallow. I dream of Winterfell corridors, where breath clouds like tiny moons and ghosts are friendly and patient. Morning opens with gulls scolding rooftops and vendors waking arguments that will last all day. Men with soft hands and sharp eyes measure everyone and then look past me as if I am worth nothing. That mistake becomes my cloak. I wear it gladly and add a hood of dirt and crooked hair. I keep the blade hidden because keeping is part of loving. I show it only to my shadow and my heartbeat. When I practice, sunlight drips across steel and makes ripples that travel up my arm into courage. When I rest, Needle rests too, and in that stillness, I feel us both getting braver. John's voice lives in the hilt and tickles my palm with a memory of simple instruction. I can already tell the lesson is deeper, harder, stranger than it pretended on the first day. Stick them with the pointy end was a bridge. On the other side are currents and crosswinds and stars. I mark gateways, stair counts, faces that frown, faces that melt when offered a joke or bread. I learn who has dogs and who has debts and who hates water and who hates mornings. I learn that power wears perfume, but fear smells like vinegar, quick and sour and common. I rinse truth in the fountain of useful lies and carry it away in a borrowed bucket. The city changes no faster than a stubborn mule, but I learn where to tug and when to wait. When sunset hits the armory racks, steel becomes a river running nowhere, bright and musical. I listen to that river until I can feel the current in my wrist and guiding knuckles. I measure my reach against a door jamb and swear to grow in skill rather than inches. Night after night, I choose the line between rule and survival, and try to walk it straight. I drag the hem of ladyhood through dirt until it loses its shape and stops snagging my feet. Inside, the maze of red stone learns my pulse. Outside, the river teaches patience to stones and children. Bad men practice their smiles, while good men practice silence, and both will fail for different reasons. I want to cut through lies like cloth, but the truth is tougher than wool and slipperier than silk. So I learn to poke holes instead, small and precise, letting light through stitch by stitch. When fear arrives, I feed it bread and send it on errands until it comes back tired and slow. When anger arrives, I let it run laps around the yard until it forgets why it came. When hope arrives, I hide it inside rude jokes and teach it to keep its voice down. I become smaller and wider at once, unnoticed and everywhere. A girl the city miscounts. I keep one eye on exits and one ear on gossip and one hand near a secret blade. If the day scorns me, the night invites me to learn again, and I accept again and again. Sunlight ripples along steel like water, and courage moves quietly through my wrist into my palm tonight. A small blade carries a long road. The first sword of Bravos walks into my life like a riddle that laughs as it answers itself. He bows to father, and the air bows to him, or so it feels when the room leans a little closer. He looks at me and sees not a lady, not a Stark, but water that wants a shape. He asks what we say to death, and I love that the answer is a sentence and not a scream. Not today, he says, and the words become shoes I can run the world in. We begin with breath, because breath is the brush that paints balance under the skin. I learn to keep air low and quiet, a hidden river that steadies elbows and thoughts. I learn to stand as if the floor might become the sea, and I would still belong. My feet find corners of themselves I did not know and grow strong in their silence. Hands open, fingers relaxed, wrists alert, eyes soft, shoulders unfurled like sails that wait for wind. We chase cats, and I chase the idea that chasing can also be seeing, not grabbing. I count steps until the counting disappears and leaves behind a way of moving like music. Sirio says, "Imagine the point," and the point imagines me back, and we both sharpen together. He laughs when I fall, and I laugh too, because falling is part of learning to swim on land. He praises when I am true and ignores when I pretend, and that is the strictest kindness. The red keep becomes a pool of shadows and doors, and I skim across it with small ripples. Guards become pillars I circle, servants become currents I follow, secrets become fish that flicker away. Sirio tells me to see with ears and hear with eyes, and I practice until senses trade jobs. I learn floor lines and corridor winds, and which stones remember every foot and which forget. We play at duels with wooden swords that bruise and teach, and the wood keeps the score on my shins. My breath becomes the metronome that writes the lesson into the tendons of my hands. Sometimes he taps my forehead with the tip to erase a thought I do not need. Sometimes he takes my hand and shows the angle of wrist that invites balance to stay. Some I sleep as if I float on my back in the long bath of practice, warm and endless. In dreams, the hall is a still pool, and I am the stone that waits to fall. I wake before I splash and keep that stillness in the first step of the day. Ned's shadow lengthens over everything, long as a winter afternoon that refuses to end. Whispers coil through the red keep like stove smoke that always finds your hair. We learn without saying we are learning, to tuck names away like coins and count them often. My father moves through the court as if walking on cracked ice, slow, careful, dignified even when tired. He teaches without stopping to teach, and I watch the way patience holds his shoulders up. Sirio teaches in the open and in the silence between clacks of wood on wood. He makes me chase cats because cats will not lie to your balance when you leap. He makes me drink water slowly and describes the sea as a teacher with infinite patience. He says the sea always wins because it never hurries, and I think of Winterfell stone. I practice empty hand and full hand, blade and space, eyes closed and eyes wide. He tells me to smile at fear until fear feels foolish and steps aside to look at itself. I carry his voice like a small bell tied to my wrist. It rings when I forget grace. Ned's beard seems grayer, and his eyes farther away, as if he looks through time to find counsel. I want to ask questions and do not, because the castle swallows questions and belches trouble. Instead, I train and breathe and listen and make myself less visible and more present. The day the boots come, the sound carries a new grammar, a stomp that means change and teeth. Lannister red spills into corridors and makes the light look guilty for sharing space with gold. I am in a room that remembers laughter when the door learns fear. Syrio stands between me and what arrives, wooden sword in hand, smile in his eyes, wind in his bones. A man with steel laughs at wood, which tells me he has not read the right story. Syrio moves, and the room changes scale, wide where he needs, narrow where the enemy must stumble. He makes men look heavy by becoming lighter than breath and more certain than a heartbeat. Wood cracks, not because it breaks, but because it speaks, and its language is confidence. I watch the first sword dance in a room that becomes a city square, a ship deck, a bridge. He is every place that balance has ever mattered, and the others are only in this room now. One by one, their certainty sloughs off like wet cloaks, and they shiver in their armor. Syrio says, "Run, little cat," and the word cat reminds my feet of the lessons. I do not argue with a man who argues with death and wins at least for today. I run the corridor that always tilts left near the end, and remember to keep the shoulder loose. Behind me, wood meets steel and teaches both a last grammar lesson. I try to reach farther, and the castle becomes a maze that keeps moving its cheese of safety. Whispers become shouts, then bells that toll like iron rain, and I understand a city can cry. I find corners that used to belong to dust, and they trade allegiance to soldiers without conscience. I move like smoke, and hope smoke can move like me, small, bending everywhere and uncatchable. The sun is a memory. The torches seize the night with fists of flickering orange. My breath stays low, the river under the ribs, and I step on silence like stone. Syrio's last look lives in my head, a lamp that does not go out even when I close the door. I find places father told me exist only in story, and story proves braver than maps. The hall with the spare spears, the turn with the cracked tile, the stair with the extra echo. Every lesson shows its teeth and then offers me a ride on its back. I hear laughing that does not mean joy, and I hear feet that do not mean help. I taste metal the way the air tastes before lightning remembers how to be light. I tell my heart to be smaller, and it obeys. A good soldier, for once. The red keep breathes smoke. I breathe water. Somewhere birds sleep through the siege of sounds. I think of the pool before the stone falls, and I keep that glassy calm in my eyes. The first sword is wood and wind and wit, and I carry each like a charm. I say not today under my breath, and the corridor is suddenly shorter than fear. I pass servants who are brave in hiding and guards who are afraid in armor. The walls change sides and then change back, and I trust only the lessons that live under my skin. If I am a mouse, I am one that chews through ropes and brings rope ends to the right hands. If I am a cat, I am one that listens to water and waits before leaping. If I am a girl, I am one with a blade that has learned to be my name. I do not cry because water dances waste nothing. Not breath, not tears, not steps. I keep moving because he moved, and moving is the prayer we share. Even danger has rhythms, and I learn them with my feet and palms and sidelong glances. Every turn I take has a memory attached, and I pick the ones that taste like survival. When the clamor quiets, it is not peace but a question, and I answer with distance. I carry gratitude like a hot coal wrapped in cloth. It warms me and threatens to burn. In a small room, I finally breathe like a person again and thank the wood for buying time. I do not say goodbye. Goodbye is a net that catches the throat and leaves hands empty. I say not today, for him, for me, for the road that still needs a traveler. Outside, the city keeps ringing like a struck shield, and the blow has not finished landing. I think of Syrio's feet, of how they never argued with the floor, only negotiated lovingly. I think of how he made steel ridiculous with timing. and a joke in his eyes. I think of how teachers who are real build bridges from their own bones and never tell you to hurry. I will cross that bridge before dawn, and I will not look down. In the courtyard, a jar rolls into silence, and everyone hears it as prophecy. The air holds its breath the way water holds a stone that has not fallen yet. I walk softer than a memory, across rugs that want to squeak and walls that want to gossip. Somewhere a cat watches and approves, or maybe that approval is only my wish pretending to purr. If courage is practice remembered at the right moment, then I practice again with every door. If grace is weight placed exactly where it belongs, then I will be graceful until morning finally forgives the night. If tomorrow is something you must buy, then I am already counting the coins and holding one aside for him. The still pool waits. The stone has not fallen. A teacher buys a student's tomorrows with his today. Bells toll like iron rain, heavy repeating, and the sound learns our names as it falls. Ned's fall is a knife that cuts a city into fear and a girl into smaller pieces that move faster. The square becomes a throat that swallows voices and spits out silence, and I run out of that mouth into alleys. Alleys and kitchens, pigeons and fear, a girl uncounted slipping through hands that are busy catching louder prey. I learn at once that hunger pays attention and pity is expensive, and rumor travels like fire on dry lace. The Red Keep is a lion's house, and I am a mouse who knows the walls better than the lion knows his tail. I trade stolen bread for corners that stay quiet, and I sleep beside barrels that smell of apple peel and old beer. I count the steps between hiding and hearing, and I measure time by how long it takes for boots to pass. When the world grows teeth, you learn where to place your weight so it does not bite. When the world grows eyes, you learn to be shadow and dust and the small spaces between thoughts. A stable boy meets me at the wrong turn, and fear makes his voice sharp enough to cut. He tries to call men with swords, and my hand moves before I understand I told it to move. Needle finds the space between ribs quicker than a shout can find help, and breath leaves him white in a puff. His body sags against hay, and a bridle falls, and somewhere the horses hold their peace for me. My stomach makes a fist, and my throat becomes a locked room, but my feet remain clever. A girl who wanted to be brave becomes a girl who had to be, and the world accepts the trade with cold accounting. I take the life like a coin I did not want, and the debt climbs into my pocket without asking. I run cleaner than tears, and the stables shrink behind me into straw and lantern light. In a corridor that smells of old barley and wheels, a man like a cliff steps into my path. Yoren's eyes are nails that hold planks together. He sees a ghost with a blade and chooses a girl instead. Come with me, he says, and it is not a request. It is a road he hands me like rope. He hacks my hair until I am an answer to a different question, and the mirror gives up knowing me. The name I carried curls like smoke and fades. Another name waits and I do not speak it. Needle goes into bundles, wrapped and hidden, and my heart finds a matching dark to dwell in. We become a ragged column of orphans and small thieves and big silences, and the city lets us go because we are not shiny. We pass kitchens the color of onions and courtyards stewing in news, and no one looks close enough to risk caring. The river keeps its worry to itself, and boats pretend commerce is stronger than grief. Yoren smells of road and stubbornness. His voice is a rasp that sandpapers fear until it fits your pocket. At night, we settle against one another like bricks that learned how to be warm. I count breaths and then stop counting and listen to the whispers of those who forgot how to sleep in peace. I hear the pigeons arguing with rooftops and the dogs learning new jobs in the dark. Morning produces us like a bad penny, and the road takes us in without thanks. We walk past people who think their lives are the only story, and past others who know better, and look away. I keep my head down and raise my eyes only for work. Water, wood, watch, warning. Inside me, a small candle learns to die quietly, wick whispering smoke and questions I cannot answer. If grief is a wild dog, I give it bone and distance and teach it to sit. If guilt is a tax, I pay in sweat and motion until the collector forgets my door. We sleep in barns and under hedges, and stars move across the sky like slow patrols. Sometimes I talk to the darkness, and sometimes the darkness talks back with cricket language. I dream my father says, "Hold fast," and I wake holding my hands like ropes in a storm. I count the children Yoren saved today and tomorrow, and know the number can change fast and badly. We share stale bread as if it were cake, and the smallest boys wear crumbs like honor. A girl with a frog voice tells jokes that make the cold step back. I laugh when no one can hear it. The road is ash in places, mud in others, and we learn the small art of choosing which to wear. Boot prints tell stories when you learn the alphabet of wait and patience and anger. We keep to hedges until hedges no longer want us, and then we share ditches with frogs and the moon. Danger moves like weather, sudden and also predictable, and Yoren smells it before anyone can see the cloud. He pushes us faster when the air learns to hold our scent longer than it should. Gold cloaks are wolves that changed coats, and their snouts lift when the wind turns correct. They fall on us like a storm that was listening the whole time, and the campfire becomes a careless memory. Shouts tear cloth, and metal plays harsh music. Flames lick dry grass and learn to run. Children learn to be smaller than they are, and older than they should be in a single hour. I see Lomi sag, and understand that names can be erased easier than anyone thinks. And fear hardens, like cooling iron. Sound scatters. Courage gathers. Everything worth keeping tries to change shape at once. I grab the one who will listen and push him where the lane is darkest, and he obeys because survival uses plain verbs. A cart overturns and makes a wall of apples and wheels, and for a heartbeat it is a fort. Then a boot finds the soft of a throat, and we become a list again, one fewer name under a low sky. Smoke eats stars until the sky forgets light. Ash eats tears until faces look made of old chalk. We run, because Yoren tells us with a voice that can still command even when dying next to it. He falls like an old tree whose roots fought hard, and the forest remembers to miss him. What we cannot carry, we must become. So I become quick and quiet and thinner than moonlight. I hear my own footsteps and teach them to be another person's footsteps, someone dull and unimportant. I fold into ditches and hedges and barrels and things built for other purposes. The road learns our new names as it learned our old ones and gives no opinion. When morning finally decides to exist, it does so without apology, and we are fewer. Hot pie boasts in whispers to make courage feel bigger, and Gendry's horned helmet leads his stubborn head. We trade stories for warmth, and warmth for silence, and silence for another hour of being alive. Someone hums, someone prays, someone sleeps with eyes open. Everyone counts the dark, like coins. A crow says nothing, and yet somehow reports. Black punctuation marks on a sky that needs correcting. We learn to walk with softer ankles and quicker glances and pockets ready for bread, rock, or luck. The land opens into a flat that makes secrets nervous, and we become dots that try to be smaller. Harrenhal rises on the horizon like a burned tooth in the jaw of the world. Its towers are bones gnawed by dragons we only know by story, and smoke lives there like a permanent tenant. The walls have forgotten how to be polite, and remember only how to endure. Names bend under its weight, and then stand again, straighter than any banner. I feel the castle see us, and we cannot be smaller than we are, so we go forward. Yoren is not there to glare storms into different directions, so we learn our own glares. A gate opens because everything opens for fear, or coin. We have fear, and hide it like treasure. Inside, the courtyard smell of old fires and fresh cruelty, a blend that stains more than skin. Wheeze's lash ticks like a hateful clock that thinks pain is punctual and useful. I become small on purpose, a mouse among lions who believe mice exist only in stories. I watch, I carry, I listen, I memorize, I place words like stones over shallow graves. In the corners where torches cannot reach, I rehearse truths that must someday be spoken with steel. My candle dies cleanly, wick whispering smoke, but another little flame starts deeper where wind cannot meddle. The lion house forgets to count the mouse because pride is a poor accountant. and hurry is a worse one. I keep my feet, keep my breath, keep my name folded and hidden like a letter with dangerous news. I let the world think I am nothing, and in that thinking it tells me everything I need to know. A candle dies. The wick whispers smoke. North lies on a road of ash and mud. Yoren's ragged column stretches like a long, thin bruise across the day, stubborn and sore. We are boys and girls, and bits of yesterday, and hopes too light to hold us down. Gendry's horn glints dull as old brass. His arms look like things that never learned fear properly. Hot Pie boasts because words are food you can make from nothing when bread is rationed. Lommy's green dreams pretend spring is braver than men, and sometimes win for an hour. We move by campfires and cracked bread, trading stories for warmth the way merchants trade hides for salt. Stories try to be thicker than the wind. Sometimes they succeed. Sometimes we pull our blankets tighter. The road gives us ditches for walls and sky for roof, and we pretend both are enough. At night, the stars stand inspection and pass, and the moon writes short letters to the pond. We count sleeping breaths like coins. We hide coins like breaths. Everything that can be counted is either depending on fear. Yoren walks as if the ground owes him rent, and it pays in small concessions and grudging kindness. He growls at danger the way a dog does when the door is thin and the family needs time. We learn to move when he moves and halt when he halts, and ask later, maybe. He teaches us drink when there is water, sleep when there is shadow, laugh when you can, run when you must. We pass farms that pretend not to notice us because noticing is work and charity is taxed by rumor. We pass hedges that love us and hedges that scratch, and we do not complain aloud. Some days are quiet enough that we pretend the world has paused to breathe and think again. Then the wind turns and brings news like a hot nail through cloth, and quiet burns a hole we cannot patch. Gold cloaks come like wolves who learn to count and learn the price of children already. They demand names the way fire demands wood, and the payment is never finished. Yoren stands, old tree defying a younger axe, and buys time with curses and grit. His voice is a wall. Their spears test it. Sparks jump from the argument. Then the attack, loud and clumsy, because confidence thinks it does not need grace. Flames find dry grass and remember how to run. Smoke finds eyes and teaches them to water. Children learn to be smaller than they are and older than they should be in a single hour. We scatter like beads from a broken string, and every bead believes it is the last bright bead remaining. I call for one child and find another. I push a third and save myself by accident. A horse screams a terrible lesson about fear and distance, and hooves the sighs of iron prayers. Lommy's breath stops like a song that forgets its next note, and we carry silence in his place. Fear hardens in me. It ossifies. It becomes something I can grip when the ground tries to shake me off. Yoren falls, and the world takes a step backward and pretends balance is the same as justice. We run because the command lives in our muscles now, and because the air has hands, and we would rather not be held. An orchard burns slow behind us, fire climbing with the patience of a tired thief. Ash paints our faces and makes new children out of us, older ones with harder eyes. We find a ditch that accepts us, and we pay with mud and trembling and the last of the water. When dawn arrives, it is not a friend. It is a clerk, recording who made it to morning. Hot Pie whispers boasts in lowercase, and Gendry learns how to share silence without turning it into stone. We go on because going on is the only craft we can practice without tools. The road pulls. We follow. It forgets our names. We keep them anyway. When we are lucky, there is a barn that smells of hay and old laughter. When we are unlucky, there is rain and a hedge that argues with our skin. We discover how many kinds of tired the body can invent when asked for more than yesterday's maximum. We discover that hunger is a precise mathematician, and thirst is a poet with no patience for rhyme. We split our little hoard of courage into equal shares, and invest it poorly, and still survive on the interest. In the evenings, Embers float up from our fire like tired fireflies, blinking once, twice, and then calling it a night. I tell myself to watch their rise and learn that flicker is not the same as failure. We speak softly of castles and kitchens and games, and the words try to grow meat on our bones. Gendry talks about hammers the way some talk about songs, and I like the shape of his sentences. Hot Pie invents pies with crusts strong as shields and fillings as sweet as revenge, and we eat them in our heads. Lomi is a silence now, and we put small stones in our pockets that feel like his name. The road changes color as it pleases, brown to gray to red like a bruise trying on outfits. We cross a brook that thinks it is a river, and I let it be proud for a moment. A crow follows us for 2 days, and then teaches ambition a lesson by finding something dead and perfect. Children learn to braid each other's hair so it does not tangle into fear during chase. We listen when Yoren's old instructions echo, and we try to be better students for a ghost. A hedge knight passes and does not see us because he is a story waiting to happen to someone else. At a crossroads, we meet a woman with a basket of onions and eyes that have seen kings and not changed for them. She trades us a look that says, live and bread, that proves she means it. We thank her properly by not wasting crumbs and not returning to bring soldiers. There are moments when the sky looks like Winterfell remembered, blue and cold and very far, and it hurts. I keep Needle quiet and close, a prayer that does not ask anything but readiness. I practice when no one watches, small jabs into the air that stitch my fear into patterns I can wear. By a stream I catch the sun on steel and see ripples swim across the blade like summer on water. It calms me more than any song could, and there are no songs here, only breathing. The older boys play at being men, the younger children play at being birds. I play at survival and try not to win too easily. Sometimes we pass a hanging tree and learn the lesson of eyes that stayed open too long. Sometimes we pass a burned door and understand that thresholds can be enemies too. Sometimes we pass ourselves coming back from yesterday, and we refuse our own advice because pride is young. We sleep with one ear borrowed from wolves and one hand nearly around a secret. We wake with stiff backs and narrow chances and still manage to laugh at least once before noon. If we had a bard, he would be bored with our verses. The meter is long, and the content is mostly mud. But I learn every hour that the drumbeat of feet can be a kind of music after all. The country grows thinner of people and thicker of wind, and a name called here will travel farther than help. We follow cart tracks that begin nowhere and end at promises we cannot afford. Harrenhal grows in the distance until it stops growing and starts looming. There is a difference. It is a fortress of burned bones, a lesson in what happens when dragons argue and stone remembers. The air near it tastes like old iron and old smoke and old oaths kept poorly. Gendry looks at it like a smith looks at a broken hammer, wanting to understand the failure. Hot Pie looks at it like an oven that learned to hate dough. I look at it, and my heart shrinks to a pebble and then grows to fill my chest. We approach because nowhere else is kinder, and because somewhere inside it, chance may wear a face we can talk to. The gate is a mouth, and it chews us, then lets us out into courtyards that smell of other people's fear. We are sorted like grain. We are measured like thieves. We are counted like cattle that count back in curses. Weezer's lash ticks, and the tick is the clock that decides how long a bruise lives. We work because work is the law of breath. We breathe because breathing is the law of work. I carry, I scrub, I fetch, I bend, and I listen as if listening were my true profession. The voices of soldiers sketch crude maps of power. The silences of prisoners draw truer maps in my head. In corners I practice standing still, until stillness thinks I am furniture and stops caring. At night, the embers in the forge drift up like tired fireflies and remind me that light can rise even in places that tried to smother it. I tuck names into my sleeve as if they were flints, small and sharp, ready to make sparks. I wait because waiting is a tool too. And because I am not done counting debts, embers float up like tired fireflies, blinking twice before dissolving into dark above us. Within ruins, names burn brighter. Harrenhal is a lesson written in burned bone and ash, and the ink never dries. Courtyards cough smoke even when fires sleep, and the walls hold heat like grudges. Wheezes lash ticks like a hateful clock, and time becomes something you flinch from. I carry, I scrub, I fetch, and I listen, because listening is a blade with no scabbard. Names move across these yards like coins passed under tables. Hands know the weight before eyes see the shine. Some nights the forge breath breathes black snow. Soot drifts slow as winter without wind. It settles on shoulders and hair and words and turns everyone into shadows of themselves. Whis barks and kicks and calls me worm, and I learn how to make worm mean watchful instead of weak. The great towers look gnawed by dragons, and the sky uses them as broken teeth to chew clouds. Soldiers speak in maps and threats. Prisoners speak in silence and patient blinks. I carry bread to places that should not remember bread, and I build routes through corners that forget to be guarded. The gods, if they are here, are tired and practical and ask us to keep our heads down. Then one day a wagon burns too fast, and 3 men trapped in a wooden cage become lessons. I fetch water and curses and courage, and we break the slats while heat bites our eyebrows. Out tumble a Lorathi, a sour man, and a quiet one with a smile like red and white paint. Later, when life remembers how to breathe, the quiet one finds me and names himself in a voice that never hurries. Yaken Hagar, he says, as if naming were a late afternoon breeze. He says 3 lives were stolen from the god because I saved 3, and now the ledger wants balance. 3 names he offers, 3 deaths purchased with the syllables I choose, and the world tilts like a basin of water. I feel power measured in breath and taste, and think of how often I have been small for safety. He asks me to speak, and I practice silence, then answer with care, like pouring a too full cup. The first name falls from my mouth, like a coin into a well, ringing once in my bones. A man dies later, as if he remembered to trip down a staircase, neat and uncomplaining. There is a hush after, the sort that listens for footsteps that do not come anymore. I carry the weight of that syllable in my sleeve, and my hands both heavier and lighter. I do not dance. I do not sing. I practice making my voice the weather. When Wheeze snarls, I consider spending another name for the luxury of watching quiet bloom. I save it because greed is a thief that steals from you first. I watch the castle turn like a wheel, while I stand in the spoke and pretend stability. Yakin appears, as if he walked out of a shadow and forgot to close the door behind him. He speaks in politeness that refuses to belong to this place, and it feels like a clean shirt after days of travel. He says a girl must give the second name, and I let the syllables sit on my tongue until they lose their shine. When I release them, they fly and land exactly where they were always going to land. People explain the death to each other, relief braided with fear, and the castle adjusts like a man to new boots. I sleep and dream of soot drifting like slow snow, weightless but everywhere, turning the world into a quiet page. On that page, I write with footfalls and whispers, and the ink is patience. I wake and measure hallways and locate absent guards by the shape of their arguments that used to be here. I string together doors that do not squeak, and stones that accept feet without comment. I hear the kitchens decide who eats well, and who eats what is left when fear is finished. I hear soldiers trade futures as if they were knives, and no one would ever get cut. I tuck a last name under my tongue and wait, because timing is a sword that keeps its own edge. At a corner where torches forget, Yaken is a painting come alive, and he tilts his head at my delay. A girl must not waste gifts, he says, but also a gift must be placed exactly. I nod and carry water and carry rumors and carry the little wolf that lives behind my ribs. The second death wakes paths inside Harrenhal that I did not know existed, and I walk them lightly. I begin to understand the geometry of fear, and the algebra of courage, and my sums improve. When I practice with needle in dreams, I learn to stab time rather than straw. In waking, I keep needle hidden and let my eyes be the point, my quiet the thrust. I look up and see soot turning the air into gentle gray rain, and I wear it like a veil. Every drift makes me harder to notice and easier to believe in when I speak like nobody. I help a woman with a bucket, and she teaches me a curse sharper than a small knife. I help a boy find a dropped crust, and he teaches me a shortcut to a shortcut. I help myself remember Sirio's instruction: see with ears, hear with eyes, move with breath. If death has a god, life has a girl, and today that is enough blessing. The third name tempts me like a sweet apple held just out of reach, and I tell it not yet. I will spend it when it buys not a window but a door, not a hush but a path. News trickles down stone. Rob is a wolf who eats banners. Tywin is a lion who eats maps. Harrenhal is a marketplace where fear sells for less in the morning and more at night. I count guards and stew pots and keys, and glances that slide off me like rain off slate. I plot an escape with whispers and the perfect theft of seconds stacked like kindling. Jaqen listens when I finally spend the third name, because I spend it strangely. I do not name a man. I name a group. I name a hold on survival that needs unclenching. He smiles, tilted, amused, and says a name is a name even when it points at a door and not a face. He pays with cleverness. Hinges forget their duty. Latches decide to take a different afternoon. The garrison becomes lighter by exactly enough, and we become heavier with exactly the right chance. We ghost through being noticed and turn a lock into a passage, the way words turn thoughts into vows. Outside air tastes newer, and the stars seem surprised to see us. Indri breathes like a bellows at the end of a long day, and Hot Pie carries courage like a loaf he refuses to drop. The night keeps its coughs to itself and gives us room to run without tripping on fear. Behind us, the stone remembers duty too late and shouts into pillows. We are already in the trees where owls edit the darkness and wolves footnote the wind. I think of Jaqen's smile and wonder which face he will choose to be next. He hands me a coin, smaller than hope and heavier than luck, and tells me what to say. Valar Morghulis tastes like iron and truth both. Valar Dohaeris tastes like chores and debt and breath. I tuck the coin with Needle's shadow and consider them siblings, each sharp in its own way. Harrenhal breathes smoke, but it no longer breathes us, and the sky seems taller than yesterday. Soot drifts from my hair as I run, slow snow shaking off a roof warmed by courage. We run out of one problem and toward 100, but movement feels like prayer with feet. I am learning that power is not loud, but placed, not a shout, but a sentence. I am learning that names can be doors and locks and keys, depending on timing and tone. I am learning to mint decisions with patience, to stamp faces into moments and spend them well. The road will require more coins than I have, but it will also show me work that earns them. I hold the last of the soot on my tongue and swallow it, and the taste is a map of where not to return. The night accepts us like a ledger, accepting a difficult number. It balances by faith and footsteps. Behind us, the lion sleeps with one eye open. Ahead of us, the river practices forgetting. Between them, I carry not nobility, not pretty titles, but a smaller thing I can protect without help. Choice fits in a palm. Fate needs both hands. I will keep my hands ready for either. Soot drifts like slow snow, settling on breaths that choose direction before dawn. A coin is minted, not of silver, but of choice. The third name leaves my mouth like a swallow escaping a storm, and the garrison forgets its duty, the way a hand forgets a dream when morning taps the shoulder. Doors unlatch as if they were only ever pretending to be strong. Bolts remember how to be rain, sliding, slipping, soft. Somewhere a guard blinks at nothing and thinks of soup, and somewhere else a hinge decides it has always liked the sound of freedom. Footsteps that used to patrol start telling secrets to the air, and the night learns a new pattern, a new corridor, a new way to be kind. We move like breath in cold, held and then released. Gendry's shoulders are a smithy disguised as a boy, steady as anvils. Hot Pie's courage is wrapped in crumbs and jokes. I'm the thin stitch that keeps us together when fear tries to pull the seam. Stone becomes corridor. Corridor becomes mouth. And we are the small, deliberate words it finally speaks. A stare remembers dust rather than guards, and we count in heartbeats because numbers make noise you can't swallow. Yakin's coin is a moon in my palm, dull until a thought touches it. Valar Morghulis, he told me, and the syllables taste of iron and a promise I do not yet understand. I keep the coin close to the blade that knows my hand. Needle feels the coin's weight through cloth, like siblings tapping each other's shoulders from different rooms. Between them I carry a road. When the courtyard opens, the stars are lanterns hung by a careful god with shaking hands. The trees take us in and hide us among their rib bones. Leaves murmur that we're late, then hush themselves at the sound of hounds far off. We slip like minnows into the dark middle of the stream, and the stream agrees to forget us for a while. North is a word on my tongue, simple and far. Wolves are nearer than maps admit. A scent in the wind, a shadow that keeps pace with our breath. I try to listen past my pulse. The night carries names from campfires we can't see, and I add them to the secret list that sleeps under my ribs. When I stumble, Gendry steadies me with a hand like a quiet hammer. When I shiver, Hot Pie mutters a recipe, and I pretend to taste warm butter to keep my teeth from knocking. Every root is a question, and every answer is a step. The road grows out of darkness like a teacher arriving without books. It will lecture with blisters and patience and the small vocabulary of hunger and rain. I tell my feet to attend, and they do, scribbling notes in mud. Needle becomes a prayer I do not speak aloud. I touch the hilt, and the knight agrees to let me pass a little farther. We camp where dew thickens on grass before sunrise, the blades beaded like necklaces no lord could own. The ground breathes mist, and even our whispers feel rude. I lie on my side and watch a spider repair a web the wind tore, thread by trembling thread. If the gods are awake, they listen from under the roots and say nothing. I count the stars until counts become sleep. Dawn finds us less frightened and more tired, which is its way of being kind. Birds stitch morning together with thin songs. We eat what we have and what we pretend to have. When we walk again, the world has edges I can trust for a little while. The coin taps against the blade as I move, and the rhythm sounds like a word I will someday need. We cross a shallow ford, and I see trout flicker like living coins. The river keeps its counsel. The shore is a frayed sleeve, and we slip through its stitches into clean light. I drink and freeze my teeth, and think of Winterfell wells, iron cold and honest. North is still far, but my spine straightens when I say it in my head. A hawk circles like a question mark. A hare explodes from a tuft of grass and writes panicked sentences with its feet. I walk quieter. We keep to hedgerows and the lee of stone fences. Once, in a hollow where sheep have slept and left their warmth, we kneel and listen as riders pass, their armor quarreling. After, the quiet returns. Surprised, we survived it. By dusk, a far glow prints itself behind a hill, the kind a river carries and a brotherhood tends. I do not yet know their songs. I know only that the road keeps teaching, and we keep passing each test we did not study for. My breath settles. The coin is cool. Needle is patient. The night smells of smoke and bread, and stories almost ready to be told. The river carries her toward a firelit brotherhood. A man with a red robe smiles like wine poured into a cold cup. Thoros's laughter has ashes in it, and still manages to warm what it touches. Beric stands as if he's been stitched back together by stubbornness and oaths. Scars map him better than any heraldry. Under roots like knuckled fists, justice sits down at a rough table and asks each of us for the truth we can afford. The outlaws are not lawless so much as hungry for a kinder law. Children sit beside killers and learn that bread shared has its own absolution. I watch the way they listen to each other without flinching, and I feel my anger stand up straighter, like a soldier inspecting a sword. Names are spoken carefully, the worst of them warned by silence. In the green dark of a god's wood, a trial is crowded into a circle of breath. The hound is dragged there by fate and chains and his own snarl. He smells of horse and fire and old grudges. Thoros smiles at him as if they share an old joke. Beric's eye holds a funeral and a sunrise at once. The accusation is simple and heavy. The answer is a blade that wants to speak. Trial by combat is a coin tossed to a god that answers by setting the coin on fire. The flames lick fate and purr. Steel meets flame and remembers childhood. When Beric's sword catches fire, the air leans in, 1,000 invisible spectators taking one step closer. Sandor curses and swings and the ring tightens until we are all one breath wide. I want the hound to fall, and I want him to rise, and I want my father back, and I want the river to reverse, and I want everything that cannot be. My want is a blade with no scabbard. Anger stands naked in my hands, gleaming with the oil of all my unspent cries. The fight writes itself on the trunks of trees and the cheeks of those who watch. When Beric falls and rises and falls and rises, I learn a terrible arithmetic. Some debts pay themselves back in flames. Thoros prays with a weary mouth, and a breath returns to Beric as if borrowed. The hound wins because the world isn't kind, and because he is very good at not dying. Justice does not clap, it just changes chairs. Later, under the roots, bread and salt are passed, and law sits with mercy and argues like brothers. The songs begin quiet and end quieter. They turn to smoke and climb the boles of ancient oaks. I hold the coin in my palm and turn it, and it turns me. Bravos is a word that feels like a closed door and an open sea both. My name is a light I cup against wind, and still it flickers. The road changes again because roads have their own ideas. The Brotherhood moves like a rumor that helps rather than hurts, appearing, vanishing, leaving debts and bandages and stories in its wake. I walk with them, and my feet learn the rhythm of people who choose their fight, and then keep choosing it. The hound marches with us, sullen, his silence barking to itself. At night, prayer murmurs under earth, low and old. I sleep against a log and dream of faces that are not finished being named. The wind, cluttered with leaf talk, hisses like a judge asking for quiet. My anger, still unsheathed, lies beside me like a dog that refuses a command. I do not put it away, I only learn to carry it without cutting myself. At dawn, Thoros's smile is a coat he wears against whatever weather refuses to mind its business. Beric speaks as if each word is rent he must pay to the day. I listen and grow edges where I used to grow apologies. The Brotherhood shows me that outlaw can be a kind of oath when law forgets who it was for. We pass villages that greet us with soup and suspicion. We pass gallows that never learned mercy. We pass mothers whose arms hold air and still do not drop it. I count the sorrows like a scribe and swear I will not run out of ink. My list of names stretches and tightens and hums. When the hound laughs, it sounds like a bark chipped from iron. When he glares at fire, he becomes a boy exiled into a man's body. I hate him because it is easier than hating the things I cannot touch with steel. I hate him so well that I forget to notice how often he does not look away when pain is near and small. By a stream the Brotherhood kneels and drinks and speaks of justice as if it were a road that needs mending every mile. I learn to patch with bread, with bandage, with witness. I learn that songs are not decorations, but scaffolds for broken hours. They hold the air up when it wants to collapse. In the deeper wood, where light filters like old wine through green glass, we bury a boy and plant a promise. The promise grows roots we will not see again. I close my fist around the coin until the edges teach my skin their alphabet. I am not done being angry. I am not done learning what to do with anger. A dog will lead her where maps do not. Sandor's growl is thunder, looking for hills to scold. His steps are arguments with the road that the road keeps winning. Mine are lighter, quicker, but inside my chest, the same storm knocks and demands to be let out. We make an ugly pair, a fire-weary giant and a girl with a ledger of names. We pass farms that have learned the cost of kindness, and we pay with coins and quiet lies. I watch how silence can be a receipt. Sandor knows which questions farmers won't ask if the horse looks tired enough. He knows which lies are small enough to step over. We drink milk that tastes of work and leave copper that tastes of relief. When news comes, it rides no horse and shouts no trumpet. It just appears like frost where your breath should be. Word of Rob's fate slides under the door and sits heavy in the room. It is a wind that steals heat from bone. It is a page that will not turn. The young wolf is a story interrupted. My brother is a winter extinguished mid-spark. The road tilts, my hands feel empty and dangerous. I taste iron and owe it no thanks. Sandor watches me the way a man watches a knot in a plank that might split under weight. His face offers nothing and something both. We do not speak the words that would make the hurt permanent. Almost home means almost safe, which means not safe. We keep moving through the almost. We skirt patrols with the shyness of deer and the calculation of thieves. We see a banner that should be ours and is not. And the color makes me bite my lip until it bleeds a lesson. A village offers stew that tastes of someone else's grief. We say thank you and leave before the thank you grows roots. Near a mill, Sandor stops and breathes like a bull that has found a fence it respects. He drinks and does not look at the water. I see the places where fire kissed him and did not apologize. A man built of injuries is still a man who must sleep. When he breaks, it is not dramatic. It is a chair finally admitting it needs a fourth leg. Wounds fester when you do not show them the sun. Sandor hides his in curses and wine. I hide mine in knives and lists. Neither of us is healed by hiding. Mercy, when it appears, is heavy as armor and twice as awkward. I carry a cup to his cracked lips and pretend it is part of a plan. He glares as if kindness were a trick, and drinks as if daring it to be poison. Rain comes, and a burned orchard hushes as if grateful to be reminded it can still listen. Apples hang like lanterns that forgot their light. We wait under a tree that died standing. The world feels made of ash and water. I breathe, and for a moment my fury naps with its head in my lap. We cross a pasture where sheep have written their soft equations in the grass. We read none of it. We are too busy with theorems of survival. The path splits and splits again, the country playing its quiet game of confusion. Sandor chooses a way based on a hill's shoulder and a brook's gossip. I follow because I know when a dog can smell a door. At a ford, water voices a rumor about ships. The sea whispers a different name, one I do not yet own. The tide has its own ledger, its own judges, its own God. I step into the cold and feel my anger harden into something that could float if it had to. Sandor grunts at the sky, which offers no verdict, only more sky. We sleep in a hayloft that remembers laughter badly. The straw is kindness with splinters. I watch Sandor pretend not to look at fire as we coax a tiny one to life. He turns away as if flame were an insult. I turn toward it as if there were answers in the coals, and find only warmth and small crackles that sound like bones, not breaking. Morning comes with crows who do not care what kings die. The road keeps us because roads like to keep secrets. We pass a bridge that leans and a priest who leans more. We pass a girl feeding a pig, and I wonder if she will stand under a banner someday, or under a sky empty of banners. We pass through our own questions and do not answer. The sea whispers a different name. Bravos rises from fog like an idea that won an argument. The Titan watches with a squint you can hear in your bones. Bells yawn across the morning, and the sound tastes of salt and ship tar and coins that are mostly honest. The city is a puzzle with water pieces. It invites you to get lost and pays you back for finding yourself. We come by a battered skiff, carried like a beetle on a great animal's back. The canals, thick with secrets, take us in. The oarsmen row as if every stroke measures penance owed to a quiet god. The hows lean over the water to listen. Laundry, like flags of surrender and stubbornness together, flaps from lines that stitch air to stone. There is a door of ebony and a door of ivory, the kind of choice that is mostly about walking forward. The house of black and white breathes cooler than the day. Faces float in the still water like lilies made of memory. Candles paint little crowns on the ceiling and drip time onto the floor. The air is honest. It says nothing quickly and everything slowly. A man speaks to me with a voice I've heard under another face. Familiar and unfamiliar clasp hands without trusting yet. He tells me a girl has no place here. He tells me a girl may stay. He tells me I must set down the wolf pelt of myself if I would wear this temple's silence. I look down at Arya as if she were a winter cloak, and I fold her. I do not throw her away. I lay her on the bench inside me and tell her to rest. I carry jars as if they were sleeping children. I empty basins as if I were pouring out stories that asked too many questions. I wipe and wring and breathe. My thoughts are dogs that I teach to heel. Shay, when the candles are snuffed, the room becomes clean night. Footsteps become thoughts. Thoughts become sleep. Sleep becomes a door that stays unlocked so the right dream can come and go. On days when the sea is a glass mood, the city reflects itself into perfection and then ruins it with a gull's laugh. On days when rain scribbles across the canals, the oars dip in perfect rhythm, steady as a monk's pulse. I count the strokes through the wall and match my breath to the boat I cannot see. The coin from Yaken cools in my palm, then warms, then cools, like a tiny tide. People come to the temple to trade names for endings. Some are tired, some are brave in the wrong direction, some are cruel, and discover that cruelty has a price even here, in quiet places. I watch the priests pour mercy into cups that do not look like mercy. I watch the faces on the wall keep their secrets better than kings. I watch myself grow smaller and clearer, like a drop of ink in a basin that was always meant to be clean. To become no one, first count who you've been. The cup is taken, and sight goes with it like a coin plucked from a child's ear. Darkness blooms without apology. The temple is a map I must read with feet and fingers. My face becomes ears. My ears become eyes. The world rests its weight on ropes, gulls, knives, coins, and I hear each thread like a harp string. Ropes creak as if the city were a ship forever moored to itself. Gull calls graffiti the morning. Knives whisper the quiet language of intentions sharpened in pockets. Coins clink like rain under tables. I sort these sounds into shelves and label them with touch. My hands learn Bravos Braille. Wet stone, rough wood, clay bowl, silk lie. Stick fighting arrives like grammar you cannot flunk out of. The waif's stick bites shins and knuckles and vocabulary into me. She speaks with blows and pauses, commas and periods written in bruises. I answer poorly until I answer better. Pain is a chalk that snaps if you press too hard. I learn how to write with it. I sell shellfish by the water and learn the price of voices. Oysters, clams, and cockles becomes a spell I cast on hunger, mine and theirs. Cats whisper to me from barrel tops, and I whisper back with fish-scented palms. The tattered prince's cousins want truths dressed as lies and lies dressed as truths. I serve either, depending on the costume budget of the day. Names tangle in this city like nets badly thrown. I pull one loose and another knots around my wrist. I practice the art of not being called when someone shouts what used to be me. In sleep, wolves move through tall grass that does not belong to Westeros. Nymeria's pack slides across the dark, like wind given teeth. I am with them, and I am in my bed. Both are true, and the moon approves. Nightwater laps temple stairs, with a patience that forgives everything except haste. I sit and listen to it erase the day's sharp corners. The blind learn things the sighted think they invented. I learn exactly how much a sandal weighs when it has been rained on, and which girls on the quay pretend to laugh. My stick finds the waif's ankle, and we both grin like wolves discovering they have the same mother. Vision returns the way winter turns into a long, kind fight that spring wins. Shadows first, then smudges, then the crispness of edges making promises. Purpose sharpens with the world. The priest's face is a mask that sometimes forgets to be one. He tells me I have learned enough to be tested and too little to be safe. The smile in his voice is a thin bridge over a deep canal. I step onto it. Vision returns. Purpose sharpens. A part to play. And the city gives me a basket. The fishmonger girl lives in my bones, as if she has always been there, counting coins by touch, reading men by their shoes. I carry a poison in my pocket like a quiet bell that only tolls when asked. I wear a face borrowed from a rack of older stories. I speak a name that is not mine until it forgets to mind. The line between justice and contract is thinner than a hair and just as strong. The many-faced god accepts payment in endings, not in reasons. I pick my way along that tightrope with arms wide. When I wobble, the wind pretends not to notice. When I fall, it will be without flailing, but not today. Marentrant's shadow slides along a wall and stops where a child sings. Old grief stands up in me, taller than the temple, and demands attention. Syllables I learn beside a weirwood wake and turn to aim. If anger once was a blade with no scabbard, now it is a blade in a drawer, opened with care, used with skill, closed with both hands. I wear a different face to walk into the place where men purchase other people's voices. I pour tea for wolves who bleat. I pretend to be smaller than a secret. I keep my eyes down and my purpose high. When he is alone, the room becomes narrow and the sound becomes mean. I step into that meanness with the calm of a tide. The throat opens like a page turned briskly. A sound attempts to be born and is not. Blood learns the floor the way rain learns roofs. I leave as if I were a thought that thinks itself unimportant. Outside, the city continues its price lists. I return to the temple with a face that hangs on a peg and a debt that does not. Masks on racks do not explain themselves. The priests do not either. Prices unpaid gather like weather at the edge of a sky. The waif smiles with no sweetness and lifts the stick that remembers my bones. I am struck for the sin of choosing my own justice. I am forgiven for the sin of being efficient. Both are true, and neither is enough. Gull feathers turn on salt wind, as if they were small boats testing the tide. I sit on the step and watch them, and let my breath learn their pivot. Punishment will be a teacher with closed eyes, and I will be the student who keeps reading after the lanterns are put out. The city moves. The temple breathes. The water writes. And I listen, and I sharpen. The trees thicken into pews, and the night becomes a chapel where every sound kneels. I teach my breath to bow. I teach my hunger to wait outside. A fox crosses our path with news in its tail. It does not stop to share it. We follow deer paths that talk to one another only in spring. Now they only hum a memory of green beneath the bare bramble. Somewhere a mill creaks without water, turning on habit alone. We pass a cart with a broken wheel and no owner, a bowl, a ribbon, a child's shoe. Loss leaves crumbs that birds refuse because they know the taste. We leave them too, for the wind to catalogue. Once the stars are so sharp, I feel them notch the edge of my eyelids when I blink. Once the clouds are so thick our thoughts wear lanterns, in case they are invited to wander alone. Gendry fixes a strap with a nail and his teeth and becomes 13 again for a moment, then older than the day, then exactly himself. Hot Pie argues with his stomach and loses. He argues with fear and wins by bribing it with stories. I practice not telling them what I see in the corners. Knowing when not to speak is another kind of blade, and I sharpen it by silence. On the second night after the doors unlatch, we find a shepherd's bothy with a roof like a shrug. The straw smells of last summer and mice. Rain writes fast cursive on the shingles, and the smoke of our tiny fire reads it aloud. I hold the coin and try different words with my tongue, words of far places. Novigrad, Tirosh, Kohor, Bravos. Only one answers me, like a mirror. When we step back onto the road, the mud remembers our feet and makes old us beside new us. The prints double our number, and I decide that is good luck. A crow walks because flying is for messengers, and he is a king taking a stroll on his black boots. He nods. We nod back. All of us understand ceremony. By the time the first arrow-shaped leaves appear at the end of a branch, the river is louder and the road is less. We come out upon a shingle where driftwood debates permanence with the tide. I skip a flat stone and watch it fail magnificently. Hot pie claps anyway. Gendry says nothing and tosses a stone that sinks like a truth that does not want to be discussed. Across the water, a smear of fire makes a tent out of darkness. I aim my feet at it. Not home, not safe, not certain, but human. And my steps are hungry for human. In the Brotherhood's camp, sparks rise like startled stars and then decide they are content to be embers. Children lean into stories, and the stories lean back. Thoros sits with his back against a tree that has given up trying to be wise and is content to be strong. He passes a cup the color of late apples and nods as if we are the latest chapter in a book he has reread many times and still enjoys. Beric's horse chews hay in the thoughtful way of a clerk checking figures. His armor is a ledger scratched by debt collectors. He asks my name, and I offer him the one that works today. He accepts it without promise. The men of the Brotherhood move with the economy of people who have burned their false maps and kept their real compasses. They look at children and do not look away too quickly. They look at men with swords and do not look too long. They take us under the roots, and the roots do not object. The air is green, remembering brown. A drip somewhere conducts the silence. We sit. Judgments here are communal, which means no one escapes their part of the blame. Thoros asks questions like a baker kneading. Fold, push, until the dough of truth shows its gluten. After the trial, the hound sits apart and wraps his anger in ragged cloth. It still glows through. I go nearer than is wise because my unspent years ask me to spend them at once and see what happens. He tells me to go, not with words at first, but with a weight of stare I try to lift anyway. I leave and pretend I chose to. Days with the Brotherhood are a belt of mismatched knives. Each day cuts differently. We free a man from a rope and bind another by his own confession. We share stew made from 5 vegetables and 7 lies told to acquire them. We find a cellar with cider still living and a family with grief still raw. We divide both according to need. It is not fair, it is practice. At night, Thoros mends a tear in a boy's sleeve while singing something that might be bawdy, if it weren't so tired. Beric oils his sword with a reverence that does not believe in gods, and yet lights candles anyway. Lem argues with wind about directions and loses. Angui teaches a child to fletch, and the child teaches Angui to pretend the arrow always goes where the story sends it. I learn where to stand so I can see everything and not be in the way. When the hound's turn comes, and the fire tries to lick old fear out of him, I stand with my hands clenched into the small truth that is mine. I think of the butcher's boy and the river, of Sansa's blue eyes, of father's last breath the way I imagine it, not the way it was. My rage opens its mouth and shows me its clean teeth. I feel how light it would be to let it bite everything. I close its mouth with both palms and keep watching. After, we sit among roots that have touched more kings than crowns ever will. Thoros pause. Beric speaks. The hound breathes like a forge, deciding whether to live. The songs drift up, soft as smoke, and tangle in the underbranches with the frayed ends of old banners we cannot see. I sleep with my head on my bundle and dream the road as a braid. Justice, mercy, anger, justice, mercy, anger. Repeat until the hair runs out, or the hands do. The next morning, we leave behind a trap the wind will admire. We walk into a village where carts are ribs and pigs are rumors. We leave quietly after making everything a little less worse than when we arrived. It is not heroism. It is stubborn housework done in a battlefield kitchen. Sandor becomes our reluctant map. He smells rain before the clouds do, and trouble before the men who bring it. He growls at paths until they confess where they lead. He hates everything that burns, which is most of the world, and I hate him cleanly because it feels like holding on to father by another handle, and then sometimes I forget to hate him for a step, and I hate myself for that. When the news about Rob arrives again from another mouth with another detail, it freezes any thaw the day had earned. The Brotherhood bury the words like a small, mean animal that bit a child. Later, alone, I dig the animal back up and make it look me in the eye. A sister's work is not finished by shovels. We part from the Brotherhood at a crossroad haunted by the smell of onions and decision. They take their song one way. We take our silence another. I watch them go and hold the coin and name together. They are heavier now. I am heavier now. The wind is the same, and the leaves are not. With Sandor, the world finds its smallest rooms, cottages that can barely fit the table inside their walls, barns that bend as if remembering whips, chapels that hold echoes and mice and little else. We knock, we lie, we thank. We leave coin as if it were a blessing I get to invent. Sometimes they ask my name and I give them bread instead. They are satisfied. The frost lines the ditch edges like silver hemming. The sun snaps threads off fence posts and beads them onto cold grass. Sandor moves like a man carrying a house on his back. I move like the shadow that would not be allowed through the door. Between us, the space where conversation could live remains largely uninhabited. A few birds and the sound of a whetstone visit, then fly away. Near the ruins of an inn, we find two soldiers arguing whether courage is heavier than ale. They ask for coin and kebab the air with their spears. Sandor arranges them into a pile of regret, and we walk on. I say nothing because saying would let the heat out of my chest, and I need it to stay in, a small stove, for my resolve. When Sandor breaks, it is evening, and the world is the color of old armor. He sits, then slumps, then leans sideways, as if the ground were a friend's shoulder. The bottle rolls away, doing a poor imitation of a wheel. He asks for death without asking, and I am invited to be the god of his afternoon. I do not accept the job. I lay a wet cloth on the fire's memory, and we both suffer it. The orchard's rain polishes every blackened limb until the trees look like gentlemen who have been robbed of their coats, and in spite of that, will bow correctly. The drops drum a lullaby for broken things. I imagine putting my ear to the earth and hearing Nymeria's pack travel under it like a subterranean river. I keep my head up instead and watch for the horse whose hoof will become tomorrow's heartbeat. Gulls drift on ropes of air out beyond the Titan. They tilt and flash their pale undersides like coins too clean to spend. I count them until my breath remembers the ocean's long sentence. The lesson will not be short. The lesson will be mine. The lesson will end when I am sharper than the teacher's silence. Blindness lifts not like a curtain yanked by daylight, but like a tide going out, leaving every stone more honest and every footprint more sure, and I stand in the shallow hush, where the world comes back in edges and shadows, and then in glints, until the coin of sight is paid in full, and yet the lesson remains, a watermark under everything I see. I keep the habit of listening with my skin. I keep the craft of counting by breath. I keep the patience of fingers finding stair lips and door nicks, and the soft dip of a well-worn sill. Sight returns, but I do not spend it fast. I let it sit in my palm with yesterday's darkness, and let them learn each other's names without fighting. The waif hunts the way rain hunts quiet, tapping where it hurts, testing where it's thin, smiling the way a knife smiles when it knows it doesn't have to hurry. And I run, not like prey, but like a memory that refuses to be caught by the wrong retelling. Fruit carts explode into bruised colors as I cut a corner. Pomegranates burst like red secrets. Figs roll like dropped coins along the canal's lip. The market shouts become birds startled out of a tree, and my feet write a neat apology across wet stone. Later, I will come back for forgiveness if I must later, when I am safe enough to be sorry. Down the steps where green water breathes iron, I vanish into a doorway that thinks I belong to it, through a laundry where steam plays dice with light, through a kitchen where an old woman stirs a pot that has learned wisdom from going hungry and then not. The waif's stick kisses the doorpost I just left, a wooden tongue tasting my shadow and finding it thin. I lick salt from my lip and swallow a small oath. I am not a face on a rack. I am not a name erased. I am a girl who went blind and learned how to see without asking permission. Dark canals read my heartbeat. I skip them like stones and choose alleys where the sun comes late, candle shops, broom closets, the throat-narrow corridors between houses where neighbors pass bread and rumors hand to hand. I wear the city like a cloak and find the hem with my fingers when I need to flee faster than thought. Sight says turn here, habit says duck there. The two agree, and I live. She hunts me through baskets and barrels. I hunt her through patience and corners. We meet where the air tastes of rope and the walls remember hands. Her stick finds my knuckles. Needle answers with the old truth I never abandoned. In the dark, truth is a small flame cupped by two careful palms. I draw it, and the canal wind goes still as if to watch. Wood cracks, water listens. Footsteps hesitate one heartbeat too long. I give ground that I intend to take back. I count cobbles. I name walls. I choose the line that makes balance my ally and not my leash. Candles, corners, footsteps, learned by heart. These are a second alphabet, and I recite it without lips moving. Here the candle guttered when the door opened. That is how you know it is drafty. That is how you know the hinge whines. That is how you know she will land on her left foot hard. Here the corner failed the last time someone turned blind. The plaster bears the bruise of a shoulder. Here the footsteps change when the alley turns to stairs. The echo leaps like a fish. She comes fast and I go quiet, and then I come faster and she goes surprised. I bleed where I choose to bleed. A line at the cheekbone, a bead at the knuckle, a stripe along the thought that says, stop. I do not stop. I am not a shell waiting for a new hermit. I am the old inhabitant, and the new tide both. I slide under her swing and hear a prayer break its leg in the next room. The stick clacks on stone like a judge impatient for mercy. Needle hums like a wolf that's found its moon. The lesson remains. Weight over ball of foot, breath where ribs can shelter it, eyes soft so they can widen without cracking. When it is done in silence. She falls into the dark, as if darkness had always been her true pillow. I stand and let my breath climb out of the well it fell into, slow rung by rung. I press my hand to the old temple wall and listen for gods I am about to leave. They are not sleeping. They are old. They are not angry. They are endless. I am a brief spark with a needle and a coin and a road. I owe them a farewell, and I pay with the coin they taught me to mint inside my chest. Decision. In the house of black and white, water holds faces like lilies in a still pond, and the candles pollinate the air with wax and reverence, and the marble floor keeps its own night between the tiles. I wash the last chore without looking at my reflection in the brass. I sweep the last line of dust into a small crescent moon and smile, because dust is just the soft armor of time. I turn when my feet tell me to turn and look at the man whose voice changed shape to lead me here. I bow with the humility of someone who knows what she is worth. I set down the cup, the cloak, the girl I pretended not to be. I pick up the blade, the memory, the girl who pretended long enough to learn. I place my breath in the doorway and step through it. If there is a God with many faces, let him keep the faces. I will take the road. If there is a reckoning, let it be in the steps I choose, not in the masks I borrow. I walk out, and the city inhales a new shape for me, and I agree to wear it for a while. Candles snuffed. The room blooms into hush, a flower of night unfolding one shadow at a time, and I go where quiet goes when it leaves a temple, home, which is not a place yet, but a direction carved in bone. Home is a direction carved in bone. Westerosi, mud again, heavy as a bad dream that learned to be weather, and the air tastes like iron and old promises. The river runs its thumb along the land as if checking a pulse that forgot to be regular. I step off the dock, and the earth recognizes my weight as something it lost and might want back. The sky is the color of steel that has not chosen a side. Walder Frey's Hall, where laughter sours like wine left near a brazier too long, rises like a boil on the riverbank. The stones have learned spite. The banners have learned boredom. The servants carry platters like alibis. I smell gravy, old damp, fear folded small and hidden under napkins. People who caused a massacre learn to make jokes with elbows and eyes to keep their throats from remembering. I walk through it like a cough that doesn't present a physician's note, and no one stops me because I am wearing the face of someone they do not care to know. Pies are served. Secrets are too. The crust breaks with a polite sound, and steam lifts like a ghost rehearsing how to haunt. Meat shines with the patience of slow heat. When the first bite is taken, the river seems to lean closer to hear the confession. I pass plates and smiles and knives that will not be needed for carving. The old lord licks his lips with the same care a cat gives cream. He calls for more. He calls for many things. He calls for someone who cannot answer. I give him what he asked for, not what he wanted. I pull away a face like wet paper, slow enough for the room to understand and not be able to stop understanding. Under it is the girl no one invited. Under that is the wolf no one remembered lived. His eyes know me, and then they do not. And then they know a last truth that arrives too late for anything but knowing. Names work like keys when turned by the right wrist. I speak the one that fits his lock. It clicks. He opens into silence. Justice tastes of salt and tears, and I do not know if they are my own. The hall learns new acoustics. Whispers sound like boots. The fire stops laughing. The old wine remembers the first grapes that ever thought of becoming it, and wishes it had stayed a hillside. I leave before the echoes can decide to be brave. In the corridor, torches pull long light off the floor, and the river pulls that light in pieces, one by one, as if it were meal and not brightness. Outside, the bridge pretends to have never met my feet. The wind combs my hair with cold fingers that do not judge. I walk until the stones stop smelling of old jokes and start smelling of rain. The dark begins to bloom the way moss does, slow and total, as if it belongs more truly than any other color. The river carries torches on its back like ants with petals, and I watch them drift away until they are only guesses. The wolf turns north toward her pack. The road to Winterfell is a sentence I've been writing since breath first made clouds in lantern-lit corridors, and now I speak it out loud with each step. The hedgerows know my ankles again. The ditches remember my shadow. The air tastes of cold sap and the promise of smoke. In the trees a hush gathers like a flock, lured by a whistle only wolves can hear. A great she-wolf appears, not like a miracle, but like a fact the world decides to say plainly. Her shoulders are a country. Her eyes are my first firelight. Her breath blooms white and then is gone. We do not run toward each other. We do not perform joy for any gods who may be watching with empty bowls. We stand. We let our hearts remember the same drum. We let knowing pass between us with as few words as the forest allows. That's not you, I tell her, and I tell myself. and I tell the path that splits into two branches of true, two lives chosen, both true, hers in fur and shadow, and 1,000 hungry mouths to lead, mine in leather and steel, and 1,000 old debts to pay. She blinks slow like a queen not surprised to have a herald kneel, and turns back into the thicket where her kingdom wears the shape of wind. I walk on, lighter and heavier, missing and met, loved and let go. Winterfell rises like the end of a long-held breath. The towers are the same, and not. The walls carry scars arranged like new constellations. The gate frowns, and then remembers how to smile. I step through and leave a piece of road on the threshold for luck. A yard holds my footsteps like a palm holds a stone warmed by sun. And she is there, Sansa, needlework and snow, music and iron, a sister remade by fire until she is sharper in grace than most men are in armor. Reunion is not a leap, it is a slow clasp, a quiet inventory of bone and scar and breath. We touch foreheads because words might break if we shake them too hard. 2 needles, 2 tempers, 1 home, and I laugh because of course Sansa's needle is thread, and mine is winter's argument made narrow and exact. We show each other the edges we learn to carry. We tell each other we are softer than those edges when no one is watching. Littlefinger's threads try to cross the room and tie around our ankles, but we snip them with quiet smiles and eyes that learned 2 different languages in 2 different hells and can now speak the same refusal without opening our mouths. He trades in doubt. We invest in certainty. He deals in rumor. We purchase witness. We hang him with his own rope without ever lifting our voices enough to be vulgar. When he is done talking, he becomes a silence that offends no more. Sisters learning to breathe together again is a study in timing. Her inhale, my exhale, her stillness, my step. We walk the yard and the godswood and the parapet and the kitchens and teach every room how to welcome 2 wolves in different pelts and the same promise. We agree about fire. We disagree about songs. We agree about knives. We disagree about dreams. We agree about mother's eyes in winter and father's hands on a boy's shoulder and the way Bran's stare carries too many skies. Snow falls in a closed courtyard, silent as forgiveness you mean but cannot say. The flakes land on our hair and hem and melt into us as if they had been waiting to return home this way. Torches puff small halos. The well remembers the rope's last loop. I look up and the sky looks back without blinking. In the hush, the castle shifts 1 inch and becomes ours again. In the hush, a dagger's path crosses a night made of storm. A dagger's path crosses a night made of storm. Bran and the cat's paw blade, history condensed into cold metal that learned patience in a sheath, sit together like a story and its ending meeting for tea. He holds it not like a boy, not like a king, but like a tree that remembers the hand that carved its face. The blade looks simple until you look long enough to feel the quiet pride of a tool that survived being the wrong man's idea. I weigh it in my palm and hear a yard full of sounds that don't belong to today. Footfalls that never arrived, a breath that should have been cut, a scream that froze into a raven and took to the sky. The cat's paw blade tells truth without adjectives. It came, it failed, it stayed, it waits. In its reflection, my face is thinner, older, more certain of the cost of sleep. Training in shadowed halls becomes prayer. Brienne's stance mirrored, her gravity borrowed, the way she sets her feet as if expecting the earth to offer a sly trick and planning how to answer politely but without mercy. We trade blows that are conversations. Here is my point. Here is yours. Here is where compromise is only a slower death. Here is where grace can still be a road. When I fall, I bounce back not like a girl, not like a warrior, but like something that refuses insult from gravity. Old names come out after supper like stubborn guests who refuse to leave the fire. Cersei, Eileen, the Hound. Others faint, others louder, Others crossed out and then penciled back in, because men who should have died have a habit of remaining. I weigh the list again, not on the page behind my eyes, but in the blood inside my wrists. Some names don't taste like justice anymore. They taste like ash. Some taste like duty that got up early and milked a cow and never wanted thanks. Some taste like nothing, which is worse. Winter's drumbeat grows louder, not a march, not a gallop, but the steady pulse of a heart that refuses to apologize for beating in a dead season. The wind licks our towers and finds the old cracks, and goes to work the way water always does. We bank fires the way mothers tuck blankets. We pour oil where hinges hold grudges. We stare across fields that keep their secrets under white as if they were silly toys, and we do not smile. A promise at the godswood, silent, sure, can be made with the absence of words and the presence of two people standing, where roots drink truth and do not go drunk with it. I touch the bark the way you cup a sleeping child's cheek. I do not press. I do not demand. I let the cold move through me until it recognizes my shape and chooses not to evict me. I promise to stand, to run, to listen, to stab, to soften, to be. The tree does not nod. It does not need to. It has already seen me keep it. Prayer steam in frosted air rises from mouths and pot lids and horses' flanks, a brief architecture of warmth that insists on building cathedrals out of breath before they melt. We stand under those cathedrals and gather our courage like stolen apples. We check our straps, our pages, our arrows, our hounds, our hearts. The longest night arrives without footsteps. It arrives as a door opening into itself. I lift my blade and step through. The longest night arrives without footsteps. Blue winds crawl over black sky, and torches become fireflies stuck in amber. The courtyard changes from place to chessboard to dream to confession. We move in small loops and long lines. The dead move without lines at all. Library stealth becomes survival, writ in parchment and dust, and the exact place where you place your heel between creaking boards. Breath is counted between heartbeats because numbers are steadier than fear tonight. Hallways hold near silence, the kind that remembers laughter and smells like oil. Friends line the walls, alive and painted both. Death knocks in its own way, without knuckles. I listen for the absence of footsteps, the presence of cold, the breath that isn't. I am smaller than silence and sharper than dark. I make myself the weight of a page turning where no reader sits. Melisandre's eyes find me like a spark discovering a vein of powder. Prophecy's ember doesn't warm. It instructs. Her voice tells me something I already knew and pretended I did not. That not today is a blade you must keep saying until your arm forgets how to tire. I nod, not at her, but at the part of me that stored Sirio's laughter for exactly this corridor. The leap, the drop, the switch. The Night King's grip is the oldest chill I have ever felt, and I have slept in ditches with frost in my mouth. I let gravity pretend victory, then I tell it a better ending. Steel slides hand to hand. Blue is replaced by a softer blue I saw once in Bravos at dawn. Tip finds fate. Fate does not argue. Quiet returns like a lake after the stone decides it was only ever a story of falling. Snow settles over the battlefield like a blanket tucked by a grandmother who scolds after she kisses. Men sob and cough and spit and pray. Women wrap hands. Children count survivors with pebbles because numbers are kinder than faces at first. I stand until my knees remember the poem of bending. I sit until my back remembers the prose of standing. Morning pinks the east with a bruise and a promise. Morning finds debts and journeys unfinished. Names move on new lists written by ravens and grief. Fires ash themselves. Swords lose their temper and are forgiven with oil. I wash blood that is mine and blood that is not, and watch them slip into the same drain without politics. I sleep in a chair because beds are for those who can afford to dream without God, and I am not that rich yet. When I wake, the day is ordinary and holy. and both suits what is next. Morning finds debts and journeys unfinished. Funeral smoke climbs a sky that has become once again a roof instead of a witness. And names fold into ash the way letters fold into hands that cannot read anymore and still will not let go. The pyres speak in crackles and pops and the soft sound a log makes when it gives up pretending to be a tree. I stand between two flames and find the seam where warmth ends and mercy begins. Road to King's Landing, and the hound returns like humor that crawled out of a grave with one good joke left. His growl is less a threat than a whet's reassurance. We are still sharpening. Do not be afraid that we will stop. The river walks beside us when it can. When it cannot, it sends geese to talk nonsense and make us laugh without permission. My fire dims to an ember that glows steady but no longer leaps for faces that do not deserve the heat. Purpose reshapes, not a knife curving toward the past, but a line aimed at a door we have not opened. I watch people for what they carry in their shoulders and how they offer their hands. I feel the list inside me shifting, some names fading to sketches, some darkening to ink. Sandor's plea arrives without ceremony on a day the sky threatens rain and then forgets to follow through. Don't be like me, he says, as if I were a road that might choose to become a ditch. He hitches his words to the old anger and drives them slow. I see the little boy set on fire. I see the big man putting it out with spite. I see a choice at the top of a stair and understand stairs can be cliffs when you are not careful. Choice made on a staircase of ruin. I put my foot not where anger tells me, but where mercy will not slip. I look at him, at me, at the city that eats love and shits fear, and I take the step that keeps my soul lighter than my blade. He nods with half a mouth. I nod with half a childhood. We part where stone remembers too many falls. Heat haze trembles over broken stone, making mirages of mercy and mirages of monsters, and we choose the right one only by touch. The city is a kiln firing clay, and bone together into a vase no one asked for. I pass under arches that cough dust for passengers they do not respect. A white horse waits somewhere I cannot yet see, and the day tilts toward it the way a field tilts toward one last stalk that refuses wind. Ash becomes fog. A white horse waits. King's Landing in cinders, swallowed by flame as if repentance tried to speak and choked on its own history. The streets are rivers of heat. The air is a book of ash turning its pages all at once. I move as if the stones will remember me kindly if I spare them my hurry. I move as if I have only one heart and would like to keep it. The girl navigates collapse, carrying the last of her anger, the way a soldier carries his last arrow, sure of its work, saving it for a moment no one will mistake, not for petty or late. I steer between falling and fallen, between screaming and silent, between those who ran toward fire to save and those who lit it and are hiding among their victims. I see hands that need hands, and I lend mine until they become a rope. The white horse appears not like a miracle, but like a mercy, a dream offered by a city that has one good breath left. It stands where a street still remembers shade. Its eye is black and kind, and it does not demand a name of me. I reach, and it allows me to reach. We move together through the ruin as if it were a field of snow, careful, deliberate, listening for the sound that says, stop. Letters home write themselves in my head. The north rises in my chest like dawn after too many nights of watch. I will tell them the city burned. I will tell them I did not. I will tell them the hound tried to save me from being him and succeeded more than he knew. I will tell them that mercy is not soft. It is heavy and requires training. I will fold those letters into my ribs and deliver them by the simple act of returning. Homecomings are defined by who left and who stayed, by who the walls loved enough to wait for, by who the snow decided to forgive, by who the godswood recognized without sight. I make a list, not of enemies now, but of rooms, of benches, of the places where we smiled before sleep. I will fill them with new smiles made from fewer people and more peace. I will place one laugh in the armory and one in the kitchen and one in the yard, and dare the night to take them back. Soot falls like slow snow, gentle and poison both, each flake a confession cut into feathers and drift. I stand in it until my hair looks like winter remembered me too well. I wipe my palm down the horse's neck and leave a clean line like a road on a map. We walk out of the city as if leaving a cave that couldn't teach us any more. The sky is ordinary blue beyond the smoke. The air is unremarkable air beyond the cough. Somewhere west, the line between water and sky rehearses how to become horizon. What lies west of maps and memory? Farewells at the docks, taste of rope and tar, and the old salt we carry behind our teeth. John to the snow, Sansa to a crown, Bran to a chair of stories, each step away made of love that didn't learn to cling, only to continue. We stand inside each other's shadows for a last minute and let the world measure us with gull cries. We have been children and graves and winters and wolves. We have become the Stark no one can make into a banner without asking nicely. Arya to a ship's rail and the open wind. I do not belong to a room anymore. I belong to a direction. The deck is a wood yard with a metronome heart. Sailcloth snaps like someone folding a map too big for any table. Men swear like poets. Women count like bankers. The harbor wharf shrinks and nods, and then forgets me in favor of the next arrival. Needle wrapped in oiled cloth lies where my palm can find it without eyes. The exact weight of the first promise I ever knew how to keep. The coin tucks beside it. Small moon beside small star. Names at peace until names are needed again. I do not know which god will ask to be paid next. I only know I have currency in silence and in steel and in choosing. The Titan of Bravos is remembered by the gulls and by me. In foam I hear Sirio's voice. Laughter cut with a lesson. Lesson flavored with laughter. And I bow to the wind because some teachers deserve to be greeted wherever they find you. The mast hums what could be a song and could be warning. I hum back and make it a duet. Seawater beads my lip and I taste the world wanting to keep me. Final refrain is simple and true. The pack survives and the lone wolf sails. I do not stop being pack when I leave the shore. I do not stop being lone when I love the pack. I am a line thrown out into blue, and somewhere far a hand will catch it and tie it to a story that needs a knot sturdy and sly. Horizon line soft as a closed eyelid tells the day it will be believed, whether or not anyone is watching. The sky becomes a lid that fits. The sea becomes a promise that hums. I stand with my fingers curved over the rail, as if holding my future by the edges and not wanting to smudge it yet. I close my eyes and the distance paints the inside of my lids with a color I don't have a name for. When sleep takes you, dream west.